Hi, everyone. Thanks for being back on Technology Envoy. And today, we have something really special today that I got from Chris Beskar, some information that I got from Chris Beskar. And Ken Shoulders was Chris Beskar's partner. So Chris is the CEO of Stevati Aerospace, as you can see on the screen here, and that is the SM-39 Razor, which is going to be the world's fastest jet that Chris Beskar is working on. The inspiration for the design is the SR-71 that was designed by Kelly Johnson, who is the head of Lockheed Skunk Works. And Kelly designed the U-2 and the SR-71. And Kelly actually found Area 51 because he had to find a facility to test the U-2 spy plane. So that's really interesting. And why I'm going through this is because Chris Beskar was mentored by Kelly Johnson. He knew Kelly Johnson, and the inspiration for the SM-39 is definitely in the SR-71 spy plane. So that's really interesting. So I think on to the next slide here, Brendan, and we'll show you. Okay, so what we have here and what we're going to go through today is EVOs and the Hutchison effect. Now, EVOs have different names, but one of the names that I like to use is charge clusters. They're one and the same essentially, and the reason why we're showing you this shot is the guy in the red shirt and the hat. That is John Hutchison himself, and the other guy is Ken Shoulders. So this work is actually from Ken Shoulders, and Chris Beskar, the CEO of Stevati Aerospace, gave me this information. So that's why I'm really happy to go through it today. And what it is all about, for the most part, is transmutation. So this is actual proof, laboratory proof that transmutation is real. And we're going to kind of go through it. So I think there's maybe one more slide. So, the other thing about these two is Ken Shoulders and John Hutchison were good friends, as you can see. Now, Ken Shoulders passed away a while back, and Ken Shoulders and Chris Beskar were business partners. So that's also why I'm kind of going through the Stevati stuff. And also this information came from Chris, and it is actually stuff that Ken Shoulders himself did. So Ken Shoulders and John Hutchison were good friends. Ken has since passed away, so John is just with us now. My dear friend Carmen Miller actually knows John Hutchison as well. So next year about this time, there's going to be a conference in Penticton called the Meeting of the Minds. And one person that's going to be there is Bob Grenier. And the reason I'm talking about this is Bob Grenier is writing a book about John Hutchison. So he knows John. And actually, I asked Carmen if perhaps Bob could bring John Hutchison from Germany over to this conference next year, if his health allows us to do that. So that's kind of why we're going through this kind of little bit of a small circle. I've known Carmen for over 40 years. I went to high school with her in Penticton. And her father, Bill Mueller, he actually saw the Nazi flying bell because he was at Peenemünde, and he knew about charge clusters, which are EVOs, exotic vacuum objects. And I was mentored by him, essentially. So I've known about them the whole time as well. So I think we can go on to the next one here. And here we have Chris Beskar, who started Stevati in 1994. So, in fact, not long ago, Stevati had their 30th anniversary. So it's not a new company. Stevati has always been involved with aircraft design and that type of thing. And Chris is an amazing guy. I've interviewed him 3 times. You can find one of those on my Technology Envoy channel, and the 2 other ones are on the Potentials YouTube channel as well. So I think we'll dive into it now, Brendan. This is a paper that was. You can go on to the next one. What we're going to share with you today is a paper that Chris Beskar himself provided for me, And the title is EVOs, which are exotic vacuum objects, and the Hutchison Effect. And of course, that refers to John Hutchison. So it's a nuclear transmutation from low voltage electrical discharge, also known as LENR, LENR. And this was a paper presented at the MIT Cold Fusion Conference, May 21st of 2005 by Ken Shoulders himself. So this again, this information comes from Ken's business partner, Chris Beskar. So yeah,
Do you want me to read now?
yeah, you can go ahead and just you can read through that again, and
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
yeah.
So this is a presentation on EVOs and the Hutchison effect, nuclear transmutation from low voltage electrical discharge. Paper presented at the MIT Cold Fusion Conference on the 21st of May 2005 by Ken Shoulders. Okay, so the Hutchison effect, slow bending of metals, shredded metal structures, fractured metal structures, propulsion, both slow and impulsive, melting without heat, metal luminance without heat, EVO strikes abound in sample.
Yeah, so John Hutchison actually lived in Vancouver, and that was about 4 hours away from me back in the 80s. And whenever people came to visit John Hutchison from all over the world, and there was people from all over the world coming to visit him, they always went to visit Carmen's father in Penticton as well. The man that I just mentioned that mentored me, and Carmen's father. Her mom was awesome too. I knew her whole family, and they were just amazing. So Carmen has had contact with John for over 40 years, and I've seen a lot of this stuff through the 40 years, basically. So I'm a witness to stuff that he did before, and I followed him along the whole time. So there's a lot of really crazy things going on here with his work, and it all sort of leads back to charge clusters or exotic vacuum objects. And one thing to know too, that there is sort of two groups of them. There's the white ones, which are kind of the good ones, and then there's the black ones, which are not really the bad ones, but it's more of an area of destruction. And the white ones are more of an area of transmutation. And if you check out the Martin Flashman Memorial Foundation, this is the Bob Greenyer, where he has been for years and years and years. He talks a lot about Ken Shoulders and goes through charge clusters in an amazing way. So if you guys want more information, definitely check him out. And I'm hoping that we might actually have him on my show at some point here with Carmen, perhaps. So yeah, let's go on to the next one. And
Okay,
here, yeah,
so
okay, sorry, I'll let you read and then I'll jump in. Yep.
okay, so photo examples of metal subjected to electrical treatment by John Hutchison.
Yeah, so these samples other people have seen. There's another gentleman in our group named Paul who physically has seen these samples at one of the things that he went to. So how was John able to make all this happen? Well, again, we talk about that the black EVO as an area of destruction. Well, this kind of looks like destruction here, so that's basically what was going on when he was pulling metals apart and whatnot. I also remember John. It was a 12-pound cannonball that he levitated, and this was back in the 80s. And I can remember I actually had the actual video of it back in the day on VHS, but I think over the years that's degraded so much that I can't really watch it much more. But if you check on the internet, you will see John levitating a 12-pound cannonball. And the other thing is too that he not just levitated the cannonball, which is made of iron probably, but he levitated all kinds of other things, including like water that came out of a cup, and then the cup would go, and He did some amazing things. So I think in the long run, once the book comes out that Bob Greenyer is writing, we're going to learn a lot more about John Hutchison. But I believe he went and worked for the military very early in his career, but nobody actually knew he was doing that, essentially. So yeah, let's go on to the next one.
Okay, electrically treated metal by Hutchinson.
Yeah, so there's again another, or maybe it's the same sample, but someone's having a close look at it, and again, these samples were even sold, I believe, on the internet. There are a few that were sold, and then there are other ones that traveled all over the place so people could see them and whatnot. But you can clearly see that it's not really melted. I mean, it looks like it's melted, but it's literally pulled apart. And what can actually do these things? Well, we're about to find out. So we can go on to the next one.
Conception of the artificially initiated collapse of the substance and key results of the first stage of its experimental implementation by S.V. Adamenko, Proton 21 Electrodynamics Laboratory. Is that Kiev?
Yeah, Kiev. Yeah.
Kiev, 2004.
Yeah. So again, here's somebody, a Russian, that is sort of looking at this exact same thing that John was doing. So the concept of artificially initiating collapse of the substance is the key here, and that's literally what a black EVO does essentially. So once everything is set up properly in the experiment, all the distances and everything are really critical to making this work. At some point, Brendan, I actually have a paper that was written by John Hutchison himself in 1985, I believe, or around that time. And it goes through all of the electronic apparatus that made the Hutchison effect happen. And I actually have that paper, and we will go through it at some point because it's really important that people understand and know what's going on with all of this. So here we go. We can go on to the next one. And essentially, at the beginning, we talked about LENR, low energy nuclear reactions. And that's essentially what this is talking about here.
So I'll read it first.
Yeah.
Adamenko nuclear conversion. Super heavy stable isotope generation. Wide range of isotopic transmutations. High energy photons and ions. Cobalt-60 neutralization. Overall energy gain.
So these are some of the things that basically can be done with charge clusters, and the one that's really interesting is cobalt-60 neutralization. Now, I talked to Chris Beskar himself, and he told me that in 48 hours using charge clusters, we can deradiate nuclear waste. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. And the last one, overall energy gain, well, this is how we use charge clusters to create free energy, essentially. Because Ken Shoulders, in some of his other writings, talked about charge clusters as being the clutch that engages the ether to get work done. So essentially, when you let the clutch out in your car, you're applying the power to make things go. So that's why he kind of termed it that way. So again, the work of Ken Shoulders, and again, he's Chris Beskar's business partner, is absolutely super important, and especially with the work with John Hutchison. And again, they were really good friends, as the picture showed there at the beginning. So yeah, and this is the next one. We can go on to the next one.
Electrode configuration for Adamenko work.
So this is just basically showing the cathode and anode. So the cathode is on the left-hand side, the anode is on the right, and it's showing essentially the energy going into the anode and the effects that are occurring there as well. Yeah, so that's really important work from the Russian. Now we can go on to the next one. Um, I'm I'm not
Them,
100% sure, but I think that this is the work of Ken Shoulders and not the Russians.
okay, I'll just
But
read
it,
this bit up. Sem
yeah.
of copper anode subjected to electrical discharge.
Okay, so that no, this is a picture of the anode after it got blasted essentially. So so actually, I think that maybe these are. I'll have to ask Chris about this, but I think perhaps maybe this is the Russians' experiment, and then Ken Shoulders worked with him, so he was able to bring this information out. So we can go on to the next one.
Okay, zinc 71 mass percentage, copper target after the experiment with traces of solidified silver and white lava on its petals, which had flowed out of the target center.
Okay, so here we have absolute proof of transmutation. They started with 99.99% copper and essentially shot an EVO projectile through it. And now they've got silver and you'll see in these next slides all kinds of elements essentially. So, you know, how does this occur? This is not supposed to really be possible in modern science, but yet transmutation, we've known about it probably from since the 1600s or more, even going back further, because I would suggest that perhaps the name for it was alchemy in some ways, where they're actually transforming from one thing to the next. And we find out again that this is done through this process with the EVOs, the exotic vacuum objects. So I think we can go on to the next one.
Okay, target after experiment number 2107. Metal of both the target and the accumulating screen is copper. Copper 99.99%. The method of investigation is X-ray electron probe microanalysis. REMA 102 device element detection range from sodium to uranium.
So, okay, here we have it. This is, like I said, absolute proof of transmutation because if you look at all the different elements, for example, the one in the top right-hand corner, you can see at the bottom that it's highlighted 52.7% gold because AU is gold, is it not, Brendan?
Yeah, AU is gold, AG is silver.
Yep. And so then we have, I can see silicone, aluminum,
Sodium, sulfur, potassium, calcium, copper, aluminium, calcium, and some other ones. Some
yeah,
other ones I don't know. It's like
yeah,
La,
exactly.
LCE, PR, and ND.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at some of these and I don't know them all either, but it goes to show you, I don't know, 20 or 30 probably different elements that came out of, a 99.99% copper. So again, in modern science, this is not possible. But if you learn about the work of Ken Shoulders and exotic vacuum objects and John Hutchison, uh, this is all real. And here's the absolute proof right in front of you, essentially. So there is also another person. His name is David Hudson, and on potentials, Leach and I did a show where we talked about monatomic gold, and we did talk about transmutation on that show. So that's kind of the first show that I talked about it on, and this is not new. This goes back a really long ways, right? And even this information is almost 20 years old, essentially, right? 20 years before we get it. So again, Chris Beskar gave this personally to me, and I'm here to share it with the world to show that there's a sort of a new science that we have to learn as we go along here.
Okay,
And we
next
can go
slide.
to, yeah, go to the next one.
Okay, accumulating screen after experiment 2107. Material of both the target and the accumulating screen is copper, 99.99%. The method of investigation is X-ray electron probe microanalysis. REMA 102 device, element detection range from sodium to uranium.
Again, this just shows a different thing, and I think I might even see more elements on this one. I think so. You know, it absolutely goes to show you that this is absolute real stuff. Yeah, I can see there's one where the gold is 73.6%. So they're just looking at a different area of the experiment and coming up with amazing results, truly amazing. So I think in the future, we're going to find that we'll be able to use this type of technology to our advantage, essentially. And that's why, again, Ken Shoulders is the man. John Hutchison and Ken Shoulders are both rock stars when it comes to the world of EVOs and charge clusters, essentially. And it's truly amazing to have contact with all the people that we do to get this information again, right? So I think we can go on to the last one, or sorry, the second last one.
Okay, results of local analysis of the element composition 277 copper mass 99.99%. Accumulating screens, each of them was used in the experiment with copper target of the same purity. Method of investigation is X-ray electron probe microanalysis. REMA 102 device element detection range from B to uranium. I think B is maybe beryllium. I'm not sure what B is, but from B
Right,
to uranium.
right.
And it shows
So that,
impurities on the chart. It shows it's the oopsie. On the chart it shows the half a green triangle impurities of the initial material of copper 99.99%. Then the red circle after the experiment, and then the blue square number of samples. On the
yeah,
y-axis, concentration of mass percentage. On the x-axis, the element type.
yeah, and then on the far right, number of
Well,
samples that contain corresponding chemical elements after the experiment. So we can see and go down and look at. I was just seeing if I could find gold. Where's AU? Yeah, AU's at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's fifth. It's fifth from on the right hand side. It's fifth coming in from the right hand side, going towards the left. And what you can clearly see with all of these is that there is more of these elements in this test than there was to start with, essentially. And it does go to show you the great range of elements that are affected by this experiment. And again, this is low energy nuclear reactions. So it's not it is a nuclear reaction, but it's not the type of nuclear reaction that everyone is used to, essentially. And this is the whole new science of it all, essentially, here. Excuse me. So I think we can go on to the last one.
okay. Table 1, decrease in the gamma activity of cobalt 60 after the experiment. So sample number, decrease in the gamma ray activity percentage, and sample number, and etc. And the diagram is showing chamber window, vacuum chamber, radioactive target, amplitude, position 1, position 2, gamma detector.
Yep. and we can clearly see again, like the 2397, the degrees in gamma activity is 48%. It's almost half. So again, this is just an experiment to prove the fact that we can deradiate nuclear waste and other things like cobalt 60. And it's actually not that difficult to do. Like I said, Chris Beskar told me that in 48 hours, we can deradiate nuclear waste. And this is, if you think about all of the nuclear waste around the world, this is probably the most important thing that we could ever say, because we can clean this stuff up, guys. And, that's ultra important. So I think that's the last slide. I think we're going to, I've got actually what it ended up being was over 600 pages of information that Chris Beskar gave me that was from Ken Shoulders. So basically all of Ken's research and also all of Ken's patents. So eventually, I think we're going to try and go through one of these a week, and or maybe these main slides will go through one a week, and then some of the other writings, the longer ones will go through in each show, but the shorter ones we might add into a few shows, because there are a few that are just a few pages long and whatnot, and we'll get Brendan to read through. Brendan, thank you for being here today with me on Technology Envoy. And
thank you, Eddie.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for sure. And again, we'll do a whole bunch more of these. And thank you everyone for watching Technology Envoy. And as we said, we'll bring you more of this. And I'm just trying to bring the most leading edge science to everyone to be aware. But again, today is all about transmutation, in the fact that it is very real. And here's the proof, essentially. So essentially, it was Ken Shoulders showing everyone at an MIT Cold Fusion conference on May 21st, 2005, the work of the Russian, and also the Hutchison Effect and his work as well. So again, Ken Shoulders was Chris Beskar's business partner in Stavati Aerospace. So that's why we brought up the Stavati slide at the very beginning. So thank you, everyone, and have a good one.
Okay.
And you can end the recording there.
Okay. Cheers.